right. Hi, everybody. My name is Monica Corrie, and we are going to cover working around the world today. We are talking about leveraging technology to work effectively as a hybrid team. And if you missed this in person, I hope this recording finds you well and you get to come to the next CET experience. So let's go ahead and get started here. We have some learning objectives today. We're going to be learning about leveraging technology. Like I said, we're going to cover some tips and tricks for managing time zones, communication, and cover some team norms that help keep hybrid teams running smoothly. The four main objectives are the evolution of hybrid work, technological tools for hybrid teams, best practices for effective hybrid work, and overcoming challenges in hybrid teams. And to just share a little bit about me, as I said, I'm Monica Corrie. I have been working at Haworth as an interior designer for the last 5 years, specifically with architectural walls. I had 3 years prior to that at Newcraft Furniture, where I did custom case good and table design. I've been NCIDQ certified for the last 3 years. I have a crazy kiddo that is turning 3 next week when I'm recording this. So probably by the time you see this, she'll already be 3. I've got a cat and a dog that keep me very busy and lots of different hobbies. I live in Michigan, so I like to enjoy the weather in the summer and be cozy in the winter and not do too much. I'm not a winter sports person, so I spend a lot of time more so indoors for the winter, but lots of time outside in the summer. All right, so we're going to get into this, and I want to give you guys an introduction overview of hybrid work and just the general definition for that. It's combining remote and in-office work, which offers flexibility and greater work-life balance. Key benefits, obviously, is flexibility. We've been hearing about that for years at this point. Employees love being able to choose where they work best, and that brings increased productivity. When you can tailor your work environment to how you work the best, it boosts efficiencies. It also does bring cost saving, not only for the employee, but also for the office, because you have reduced commuting and office space expenses. However, remote work comes with its own set of challenges between communication, collaboration, and technology. So we are going to cover a lot of those things that are challenging today. So some of the importance of leveraging technology in hybrid work is enhancing that communication that is struggling with. It helps increase flexibility and improve productivity. We do know that there is a lot of challenges around technology right now. That's something that's never going to change. We have to worry about security risks and keeping data safe. We have to be concerned about technical issues because what happens when the Wi-Fi goes out? What happens when your computer dies? There's things like that that you have to think about. And then there is the digital divide, where not all team members might have equal access to high quality internet and devices, leading to disparities. And that's something that will have to be considered in your remote work policies. So I want to give a little bit of background and definition around hybrid work. So we're going to go and do a little bit of history here and talk about the evolution of hybrid work. So hybrid work actually started in the early 1960s. Germany started experimenting with flexible work schedules due to labor shortages. And then in the 1970s and 80s, telecommuting emerged with advancements in telecommunications technology. Then as we got into the 2000s, we had seen a lot of internet improvements, so people were able to start working reliably from home. And then as the late 2000s came around, we got into cloud computing and collaboration tools like Google Docs and Skype, Microsoft Teams. All of those started coming around. And then, of course, we all know about COVID-19. That really gave us a push to accelerate that. So in 2020, the pandemic forced a global shift to remote work, but it also proved that there's feasibility and benefits of hybrid models. So now that we are post 2020 and that pandemic, hybrid work is still becoming the dominant model, with a lot of companies adopting that flexible work policy. So just some key milestones in the last 15 years. 2010, there was the introduction of Slack, which we'll talk about a little bit today. It's a very well-known team communication platform. Then in 2011, there was the launch of Office 365. So that enhanced a lot of remote collaboration possibilities. 2020, we had the pandemic. And then 2021, hybrid work models became mainstream. So going through here, just cite some current trends and statistics of hybrid work. There's been about 74% of US companies have planned to or plan or have already implemented a permanent hybrid work model. There's about 49% of desk workers that work in a hybrid arrangement. We have seen a decent amount of employee preference for a hybrid model, that being about 66%, and about 98% want to work remotely at least some of the time, whether that's a one-off situation or they just want the flexibility here and there when they need it, or they want to do 2 to 3 days at home or wherever they'd like to be remote. So there's a lot of different options there. And then we started to see emerging work patterns where a lot of employees now come into the office about 2 to 3 days per week. And at least 28.2% of full-time employees work a hybrid model. We see in these projections that around 2025 that 32.6 million Americans will work remotely in some form. And that equates to about 22% of the entire workforce. So that's a little bit of history. So now we're going to cover some technology tools for hybrid teams. And now I've broken these apart into three major categories. We're going to talk about communication tools, project management tools, and collaboration tools. All right, so the first one are communication platforms. Now, obviously, there's a lot more than just 5 communication platforms out there, but I went and I chose the top 5 that I hear the most about, as well as research points to these are the 5 that are being used the most right now. Not necessarily the top 5 in that order, but the 5 that get used the most. So the first one is Microsoft Teams. I use this on a daily basis. This is the program that Haworth has chosen to run, and there's a lot of good pros to that. So as a communication platform specifically, it has a lot of robust features for chat, video conferencing, file sharing. They do have very strong security and compliance capabilities, which is part of the reason Haworth chose them. They also integrate with Microsoft Office 365, SharePoint, OneDrive, all of those things very well. So that increases collaboration, which we'll talk about that when we get to the collaboration part. The cons of Microsoft Teams is that it can be overwhelming for new users due to its extensive features, and you do need a pretty stable internet connection for optimal performance, especially when you get into video conferencing. Now, with that being said, there is a ton of features. You don't have to use all of them, but when you start getting and implementing it as a system, you can absolutely start tailoring it to what you need. You can use it for files or file management. You can use it for channels and projects. There's a lot of different capabilities within this program. The next one we have is very similar, but doesn't do the file sharing. This is specific to communication, is Slack. So Slack is very user-friendly. It has a very simple interface with customizable channels. The channels are basically group chats that you set up for different projects, different teams, things like that. Slack does integrate with a lot of third-party apps for project management like Google Drive and Trello. It is great for real-time messaging and collaboration. The cons to Slack is it is very limited as far as video conferencing goes, and it can become cluttered with a lot of excessive notifications if you get a lot of channels going. Next one we have here is Zoom. This one is also very popular. It has great high quality video and audio conferencing, minimal setup required, and they do allow breakouts for smaller group discussions when you are doing training and team meetings and things like that. There is some cons to it. Security concerns have been reported. There was a big thing about Zoom bombing in COVID, but it's a lot less common. Zoom enhanced their security, but it can still occur. It's basically when an uninvited participant gets access to your meeting and disrupts it. The other con is that their free version has time limits on group meetings. So if you're going to go the Zoom route, it's most likely going to have to be a paid function. Next one we have is Google Meet. This one integrates well with Google Workspace, obviously, because that is their suite of products. So Gmail, Calendar, Google Drive. They require no software install, so it runs in a web browser, which can free up space on your computer. It generally has quite reliable video and audio quality, even if your internet is not super great. The cons to it is that it does have fewer advanced features compared to competitors. There's limited customization options for meeting settings. So you're just a little bit more restricted in what you can do with the communication, but it does have some bonuses as well. Then we have Cisco WebEx. This one kind of went up and down in what I saw over COVID. Before COVID, they seemed like they were kind of falling behind technology-wise, but then with the big push for everybody being remote, it seems like they really upped their game and they increased their security and end-to-end encryption. They added comprehensive tools for video conferencing, webinars, and collaboration. They are integrating AI-powered features like noise cancellation and transcription. Basically, all of these platforms now have some form of AI-powered feature. Microsoft Teams has integrated with Microsoft Copilot if you buy their top license, but they also have transcription and things like that. That's something that Zoom is doing as well. Meeting summaries, reports are coming out of these programs from that. So that is something to look into as well. If AI is important to how you work and you want to use that for efficiencies, some of these tools integrate with it better than others. So definitely consider that. The cons to Cisco WebEx is that it can be expensive for small businesses and the interface can feel outdated compared to newer platforms. I will say their interface has gotten a lot better even in this last year. So they are getting better at that and making some major facelifts. So those are the top 5 communication tools. We are going to talk about the top 5 project management tools. So there is 5 tools that I'm going to talk about here. The first one is going to be Trello. This is a project management board, which is kind of card-based. So it is very user-friendly with a drag and drop functionality. You can put things into different buckets. You can have visual boards, lists, and cards with task management, dates, comments. They integrate with different apps like Slack and Google Drive and Jira, so you can link tasks to planner board cards. You can see who's working on what, because you can assign people to it, different things like that. However, it does have limited advanced features when it comes to complex project management, and it can become cluttered with way too many cards and boards if you have a lot of different tasks going. The next one is Asana. This one is also a comprehensive task and project tracking uh, tool, but it has more timelines and calendars based. It has customizable workflows and templates. There's very strong collaboration features, like you can add task comments, file attachments. The cons with Asana is that it does require a steeper learning curve for new users because there is so much functionality to it. And it is paid. Advanced features are generally only available in the premium plans, so that is something to consider. Trello is completely free. The next one we have is Jira. This one is excellent for software development and agile project management. I also use this on a daily basis for the software development of CET on the Haworth side. We use this for task management. It's great to add files in, create tasks, assign tasks, manage sprints, add comments, communicate with people who submitted bugs and requests. It's a very robust program. It's highly customizable, lots of various plugins and integrations. A cons to this is that it is very complex and overwhelming for non-technical teams, and it does require significant setup and configuration. Absolutely worth it if you are doing software development, but it does require some of that upfront information. They do have different levels of software purchasing as well. So that is something to consider. This is also a paid program. Then we have Monday.com. This one is very visual and customizable as far as the dashboards go. So this is an example of one of the dashboards. You can look at the project overviews by people, status, and timeline. Due dates and priorities can be customized in there. It's very versatile for different types of projects and industries. So this one is very much more general. It does have a lot of strong automation features. So that means it can like integrate with those other apps that we've mentioned before. The cons of Monday.com is that it can be expensive for larger teams, and some users do find the interface to be too busy. There is the caveat to that is sometimes a lot of these project management tools can just feel busy. So sometimes you can't get away with that. So just to pick the one that is going to be the most functional for you. And the next one we have is called Basecamp. This one is very simple and straightforward as far as the interface goes. It helps combine project management with team communication tools. They have a flat pricing model regardless of team size, so some people really like that. It allows you to keep track of messages, schedules, to-dos, and more different like buckets you can put things in. You can catch up with all the comments in project activity. Very simple to use. The cons, it does lack some advanced features you can find in other platforms, like some of those integrations and um, things like that. There's limited customization options available as well. That's why it's more simple and straightforward and a flat pricing model. So some give and take. The next one that we have here, and we're going to talk about is collaboration tools. So the top 5 collaboration tools that we've picked out is Google Workspace, Miro, Microsoft Teams, Slack, and Asana. Yes, you've seen some of these already in the previous slides, but that's kind of my point with this is that some of these tools can do multiple different things for your team. So that's something to consider when you're looking at different tools to support your team. So the first one is Google Workspace. We talked a little bit about using Google Docs and whatnot, but Google Workspace has a whole, this is what is their Google Suite. Gmail, Calendar, Google Drive. Puts everything all in one place, similar to Microsoft SharePoint, which is a competitor of them. So you can have real-time collaboration on documents, spreadsheets, presentations. You guys can work on them at the same time. You do have the reliable video and audio quality with Google Meet, all built into the same platform. Cons to Google Workspace is that it does have fewer advanced features compared to some competitors, and there's limited customization options for the meeting settings again. There is also, people don't always like Gmail. For work emails, it's harder to organize it. So that is a consideration if you're going to use the Google Suite. The next we have is Miro, and this is a highly visual collaboration tool. It's excellent for doing virtual whiteboards, visual collaborating. It helps support that brainstorming and mind mapping that we need to get out sometimes, as well as integrates with tools like Slack, Trello, and Zoom. The cons to it is that it can be overwhelming for people unfamiliar with using visual collaboration tools. However, I found it is quite easy to get used to, at least in my perspective. I feel like they did a good job of integrating tutorials as you get started. So that is something to consider. Some things with Miro, though, is that advanced features are only available in premium plans. So again, you have to consider cost. And then we have Microsoft Teams. Microsoft Teams allows for channels and teams to be created as needed. It does integrate with the Microsoft 365, so it's the direct competitor to Google Workspace, basically. So you have SharePoint and Microsoft Office 365 and Teams all together. Then you have the Workspace for Google all together. Teams has a lot of robust features, again, for chat, video conferencing, file sharing, and they are really good with security and compliance. So, again, Microsoft Teams does require a decent amount of setup prior, and it can be overwhelming because of all of the extensive features. It is a good idea to set up norms around these features, who's allowed to create channels and teams and document libraries. Otherwise, you might end up with a mess. So things to consider with any of these programs, really. And then the next one, again, is Slack. I brought this one up again because it does have great collaboration functionality where you can customize those channels for project-specific channels. You can integrate it with like Trello for project management, Google Drive for documents. It's a little bit more um, singular program, and you have to integrate it with other programs to do the multiple things. So you would integrate Slack with Google Drive and possibly a project management board to get the three pieces of the tool that you want. But some people like that because they like having Slack specifically because it's simple. So those are things to consider. The next one is Asana again. And I brought up a different part of Asana. And you can see that it has planner board capability, comprehensive task management. You can do customized workflows. The key point for Asana in this one is that they have good collaboration features. You can comment in tasks, you can attach files. There is a lot that you can do in here specific to collaboration. All right, we're going to shift a little bit and we're going to start talking about best practices for effective hybrid work. So, the best practices, we're going to start with establishing clear communication protocols. It's very important that when you start in a hybrid work model that you define your communication channels, what the primary tool is going to be for communication, what you're going to use for email, chat apps, video conferencing, and which ones are purpose specific. Use specific channels for different types of communication. Slack for quick updates, email for formal, things like that. And it's best to put all of these things into a team norm document so everybody is aware of the expectations. Set response time expectations. It's important for your team to understand what the response time expectation is for your team. And it's also important as a hybrid team to clearly communicate team members' working hours and availability. We all know flexibility is important to workers now. It's important to me, so I completely understand. But within that, we still have a responsibility to communicate when we are working and what our availability is so that we can be effective at work. So shared calendars, managing time zones, things like that. Definitely find a way to communicate that availability that works the best for your team. Regular check-ins are really important for hybrid teams. If you don't have regular check-ins, it's easy to get lost. You can lose track on projects and all kinds of different things. So it's really nice to do a daily stand-up. Whether you are implementing daily or weekly stand-up meetings, it's up to you and your team and the projects that you're working on. One-on-one meetings are also super valuable for hybrid teams. So scheduling regular one-on-one meetings with your managers and team members, that's very important. Doing one-on-ones with the people you are on projects with regularly is also helpful. And then establishing documentation and accessibility protocols. So a lot of us now work with what we call a centralized repository. And that is basically like OneDrive or SharePoint or Google Drive, where you can access, multiple people can access the same document from different locations at the same time. And have one place to store all of their things for work. And so that's what the centralized repository does, but you're going to need clear guidelines around it, where and how to access that information. Is there information that they can't access on public Wi-Fi? Do they need to be using a VPN? What are the security measures? Things like that, as well as actually maintaining a good file structure for your centralized repository. Otherwise, things will get lost and you won't be able to find important documents and resources. So setting up a good folder structure to begin with is also very helpful. And last but not least on this topic, I wanted to mention feedback mechanisms. It is important with hybrid workers and any workers really to encourage open channels for feedback and suggestions, those one-on-ones, talking and making sure that you are making yourself available as a manager to communicate with your employees and that you're making them feel as comfortable as possible bringing things to you. So that's important. If you have employees that have a hard time voicing their opinions, find ways to work with them as well as encourage them to open up more. But conducting regular anonymous surveys can help you with things like that and help you gauge areas for improvement as well. One of the biggest things I can say is it is important as a hybrid manager to keep those communication lines open and flexible, as well as encourage growth within your team. And I know it's a balancing act, but hybrid work definitely requires a little bit more mentorship and a different aspect to it. And just making sure that you're keeping your team members engaged. All right, now we're going to talk a little bit about overcoming challenges in hybrid teams. So, we want to bridge the gap between remote and on site employees. That is one of the challenges that we see happening a lot. Sometimes we'll go to meetings and people in the room will kind of forget that people are on the call and not give them a chance to talk. So encouraging equal participation using these tools. Um, Microsoft Teams has the ability to raise your hand. That is a great way to get attention when you are a remote worker, and make sure that you have good team norms that if somebody raises your hand, the people in the room stop talking when they can and let the remote people pipe in, giving the remote workers a chance to voice their opinions just as if they were in that conference room. Then I know with remote scheduling, it is important to manage different time zones. A lot of us now work in different time zones among the same team. So finding that flexible schedules to accommodate the different time zones. What our team has done is had core hours. So basically from 11 to 3 p.m. Eastern time would be the core hours across the states. And those are the hours that we try to all be available. Um, with that being said, that doesn't always happen. But as much as possible, we do try to stick to keeping some core hours for meetings and things where we can collaborate together. And then outside those core hours, we can flex our time as well as work on projects and less collaboration focused, more focus work during the time when you can't contact the other parts of your team, as well as implementing what they call asynchronous communication. And that is basically using email and project management software to keep everybody in the loop. Another challenge that you find with hybrid teams is team cohesion. It can feel very much like you're not part of the team when you are hybrid working at home, and you feel like you miss things. So it's important to keep regular updates on track, share and celebrate team achievement, keep everybody connected, encourage virtual team building activities, coffee chats, scheduling regular meetings just to grow as a team and not necessarily focus on work, things like that. Another thing that can happen is not clear expectations on productivity and deadlines and goals. So it is very important with hybrid teams to set clear goals and what they call KPIs, which is key performance indicator. That helps not only you as a manager hold people accountable, but it helps the people working for you understand what exactly they need to be doing. And there's no confusion on what their productivity should be. Obviously, if something happens and deadlines need to change, that is a conversation to happen, but having goals to get to is where that conversation starts. So, conducting regular check ins to monitor those progress and provide support is also helpful. So, those daily stand ups or one on ones are great ways to do that. And then I want to talk about addressing technology issues. It is important as a manager or as a company to have reliable tools for your team. It is important for you to decide what communication and collaboration tools that you are going to use, as well as what is expected for them to have at home. Are they expected to have a printer if they're working from home? Are they expected to be able to get on video calls all the time? What is the expectation? And are they able to do that? If there is not, what can be done? They don't have reliable Wi-Fi. What's your company's policy going to be? Will they have to be an in-office worker? Or is there stipends that you're going to offer to have Wi-Fi available for their area for better price? Things like that. So those are just things to think about when you start getting into hybrid work. Then there's also the technical support aspect. It is important that any worker has access to technological support to quickly resolve issues as possible. We all know computers like to have their own issues, so having a tech support on call, if possible, is a great option. All right, so with that, we are going to wrap up here and do a conclusion. So just to kind of give you a summary of the key points that we went over, we talked about the evolution of hybrid work. We went through the historical context and how work models have evolved from traditional office settings to remote and hybrid models. We talked about those driving factors like COVID and technology advancements and workforce expectations. We talked a little bit about current trends and seeing where that's going. And we went through a lot of technological tools for those hybrid teams. Talked about essential tools for effective communication using video conferencing platforms. We talked about collaboration tools, project management tools like Slack and Asana. We talked about productivity tools that help maintain productivity and track progress, such as time management apps and cloud storage solutions. Then we covered best practices for effective hybrid work, just making sure that you're establishing clear communication protocols and channels, flexible work arrangements, but understanding the norms and requirements around them, keeping your team cohesive and managing that through regular check-ins and team buildings activities. As always, I want to encourage continuous learning with this. It is going to be something that changes and grows and evolves as technology changes and grows as evolves. So encourage that continuous learning and development through training programs and mentorship opportunities as well as things like this, the CET conference. It's a great way to do that continuously learning and find new things. We talked a little bit about overcoming challenges in those hybrid teams. We're bridging those remote and on-site gaps, managing time zones, ensuring productivity, and addressing technology issues. So some final thoughts for you is basically embrace the hybrid work model. That is basically the expectation now for the workforce. It drives the flexibility and adaptability that people are wanting. It helps them with a find that balance with work life. And it is important for you to also encourage the balance between remote and on-site work to not only maximize their productivity, but balance that with employee satisfaction. Number two, leverage technology as much as possible. There's tons of tools and solutions. It might take a bit to find the right tools for you, but when you do, they can enhance your team so much better between communication, collaboration, and productivity. Stay up to date with those latest technology advancements to continuously improve your hybrid work practices. Three, foster a strong team culture. Promote inclusive and supportive team culture where all members feel valued as much as possible, and keep your team members engaged through those regular check-ins, team building activities, and open communication. Make sure they know that they can talk to you and that you will listen and adapt as they need and support them. Four, address those challenges proactively. That's why we covered several different challenges that happen with hybrid teams today. I want to did share potential challenges early so that you could have ideas and implement strategies to overcome them. And then provide them support and resources to help them navigate the hybrid work environment when necessary. So work on those team norms before you implement the model. Make sure that there's agreement as much as possible with expectations and how they are expected to respond in their hybrid model. And then final thoughts again, I'm going to put in another plug for continuous learning and development. It's important to foster an environment that supports personal and professional growth for all team members. So that is my presentation on hybrid work models. I have a list of references in here if you would like to review any of the data that I pulled from. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me. My email is monica.corrie@haworth.com, and I would be happy to talk to you about any of this. So have a great day. I hope you had a great conference, and hopefully I'll see you next year.